Nicolas Maduro had already been captured. The mission was already underway. This is how the U.S. Navy played a crucial role in the capture of Maduro. The ocean was quiet, the skies were crowded, and a single mission was already moving forward. Before sunrise on January 3, 2026, Nicolas Maduro was no longer in Venezuela. By early morning, he was already off the Venezuelan coast under U.S. military control. The operation that made this possible was called Operation Absolute Resolve. It wasn't loud at first. It didn't begin with boots on the ground. It began far above the clouds. For months, planners across the U.S. military worked in silence. Intelligence teams gathered data. Planning involved U.S. Southern Command, Navy Fleet Command, Air Force Global Strike Command, and multiple intelligence agencies. Analysts studied movement patterns. Commanders tested timelines through repeated simulations, removing errors before the mission ever became real. When the final order came, there was no delay. Everybody already knew their role. The operation officially started late in the evening Eastern Time. The final execution order was issued just before 11 p.m. Eastern Time. While most people were asleep, aircraft began launching from bases across the Western Hemisphere. Over 20 airfields and naval platforms were involved. Some took off from land, others launched from ships at sea. This was not a single strike or a fast raid. It was a layered plan, designed to control the air, the sea, and the space above them. The first phase happened entirely in the sky. Fighter jets, bombers, surveillance aircraft, and drones moved into position. This included stealth aircraft flying undetected inside contested airspace. They didn't fly all together. Each group had a different task. Some watched, some listened, others prepared to block or confuse enemy systems. Cyber and space-based assets were also activated during this phase. This was about shaping the environment before anyone ever touched the ground. More than 150 aircraft were involved. Thousands of total flight hours were logged in a single night. That number alone tells you how serious this mission was.
That only the United States could do. It required the utmost of precision and integration within our joint force.
Fighters protected the airspace while stealth and electronic warfare aircraft disrupted radar and communications. Command and control aircraft synchronized every movement. The Navy's role here was critical. Aircraft launched from carriers and ships provided constant coverage. Navy strike fighters maintained continuous combat air patrols. Navy pilots worked side by side with Air Force, Marine, and Guard units. At sea, Navy commanders managed launch windows, fuel timing, and recovery plans. Refueling schedules were planned down to the minute. The ocean became a moving base. As the night went on, explosions were heard near Caracas. These weren't random. They were carefully planned strikes meant to distract. Air defense nodes and early warning systems were specifically targeted. Air defenses were hit. Sensors were offline. Communication lines were disrupted. All of this created a narrow, protected path through the air. That corridor mattered because helicopters were coming next. This was the most fragile moment of the entire operation. If the helicopters were detected here, the mission could collapse before it ever reached the ground. Once they lifted off, there was no fast retreat, no quiet reset, and no second chance. Low over the water, Navy and joint helicopters lifted off. They flew at altitudes as low as 100 feet to avoid radar detection. That height helped them stay hidden. Overhead, Navy aircraft formed a protective shield. Fighters stayed close. Surveillance drones watched ahead. Electronic warfare aircraft jammed threats before they could lock on. This is where the Navy's experience at sea made the difference. Flying long distances over open water is not simple. Navigation, fuel management, and timing have to be exact. Any mistake could expose the force or force an abort. Navy crews do this as part of their normal training.
To get an interdiction force into downtown Caracas while maintaining the element of tactical surprise.
That night, those skills became the backbone of the mission. As the helicopters approached the land, air defenses had already been suppressed. Navy-led coordination ensured no gaps opening coverage. If a radar system came back online, it was immediately neutralized. If a threat appeared, it was handled. The goal was simple: get in, get the target, get out. When the helicopters crossed the final terrain outside the city, commanders confirmed something rare. Surprise had been preserved. No large-scale mobilization had been detected. No early warning, no mass response. The plan was working exactly as designed. The ground force moved fast. As helicopters landed near the compound, resistance appeared. Shots were fired. U.S. forces responded in self-defense. One helicopter sustained damage but remained flyable. The Navy's protective air layer never broke. Every helicopter stayed covered from above. Inside the compound, events moved quickly. Maduro and his wife attempted to reach a hardened safe room. This room was reinforced and designed to delay capture. They didn't make it. They were intercepted, contained, and taken into custody. The objective was achieved, but the most dangerous phase was still ahead.
Maduro has arrived in New York hours after President Trump announced the U.S. had captured Venezuela's president after launching strikes on the country. A social media page run by the White House posted this video you can see here. It shows Mr. Maduro entering the Drug Enforcement Administration headquarters in New York.
Extraction is often the riskiest part of any operation. This was no different. Once the helicopters turned back toward the coast, any escalation could trap the force or turn a clean exit into a prolonged fight. As the force moved back toward the coast, protection never stopped. Air cover remained in place until the last helicopter cleared land. Fighter aircraft tightened their orbits. Drones tracked movement beyond the compound. This was the moment when a single failure could undo everything that had gone right. By the time the helicopters reached open water, the most dangerous phase was complete. Now the sea became the focus again. Waiting offshore was a U.S. Navy amphibious assault ship. The ship served as a secure detention and command platform. It acted as a floating fortress. Helicopters landed on deck one by one. Detainees were transferred below. Medical evaluations and identity confirmations were conducted immediately. Commanders confirmed accountability. At that moment, the operation ended where it had always been planned to end, at sea. The Navy's role didn't start with the capture, and it didn't end with it either. From launch to landing, Navy forces provided the platform and coordination that made the mission possible. Without naval control of international waters, the extraction phase couldn't have been sustained. Without control of the sea and the air above it, the outcome could have been very different. What made Operation Absolute Resolve stand out was not just strength, it was timing. Every phase was executed within minutes of its planned window. Navy ships worked as a moving command center, while aircraft acted as shields, keeping the operation steady under stress. This wasn't about showing power for its own sake. It was about control, the ability to reach far, stay coordinated, and leave without collapse. This kind of operation requires years of joint training and constant readiness. That ability is built over decades of training and experience. For the people watching from afar, the event felt sudden. One night Maduro was in power, the next, he was gone. But for those involved, nothing about this was sudden. Months of intelligence preparation led to hours of execution. Every minute had been planned, every role was rehearsed. The Navy's experience with joint operations was deeply significant. Working with other branches isn't an exception for them, it's routine. Naval operations depend on coordination across air, sea, and intelligence domains. At sea, isolation demands cooperation. That mindset carried directly into this mission. Once the ship departed the area, it moved away from Venezuelan waters. The detainees were secure. Air and maritime security remained in place until the ship exited the region. The risk dropped. The world woke up to a new reality. Operation Absolute Resolve wasn't just about capturing one man. It was about demonstrating reach. From sky to sea to ground and back again, a full circle of control. The Navy didn't act alone, but without it, the mission couldn't have happened the same way. The ocean wasn't just a backdrop, it was the foundation. And on that foundation, the operation succeeded.